So it only feels appropriate that I'm sitting in the floor today for day 13 of our 21 days in the book of John as we look into John chapter 13, which ironically happens in the floor. The entire story pretty much happens in the floor. And when you look at this story, and I would encourage you to read the whole thing on your own, but when you read it, I want you to do this one thing. I want you to think about this from the perspective of Jesus, okay? Not from Judas, not from Peter, not from the other disciples. Think about it from the perspective of Jesus, and I want you to begin to feel the weight, the amount of burden that's coming down on Jesus, because as he inches his way closer to that cross, the heavier this is getting, the heavier the burden is, the bigger this is becoming. And Jesus knows this is going to happen. And it's interesting because in this moment, what did he do? Did he crack under pressure? No, not at all. He does the opposite. He's sitting at this table with the disciples as they're in the floor with their feet thrown back behind them. And he gets up in this moment and he washes their feet. He assumes the position of the servant and he washes their feet. But then on top of that, we see that he goes into this conversation and we see that he predicts that he says that Judas is going to betray him. And then he goes a little further and he tells Peter, so listen, before you get started, you're going to betray me too. You're going to deny me. And you know what hits me about this is I could shake a finger at Judah and I could, look at what he did, and I could say, look at Peter. But I've betrayed Jesus too. And I've also denied him myself before. So before I get all arrogant and conceited like I did something, I didn't do a thing. Here I am, I find myself in the floor right now because this story humbles me. This story brings humility. And if the King of Kings, Jesus, the superstar of all superstars, decides in this moment when all this pressure and all this burden is being loaded on him to get up from the table and humble himself down and wash the feet of the disciples, that's mind-blowing. And you know what's amazing is in verse 3, it says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So Jesus could have chose to just gotten out of this at any point, but he didn't do that. He chose to get up and humble himself down like a servant. And then even though he knew that there was one at the table that was going to betray him, even though he knew that there was not just one but more that was going to deny, even though he knew those things, he still chose. Do you know why he chose? It wasn't because he needed some kind of confidence builder. None of those things. You know why he chose to do that? You know why he chose to sit at the table with somebody who would betray him? Because of you. Because he loves you that much that he would be willing to sit at the table with people that would betray him and deny him. But the truth is, I am guilty of those things. And I'm thankful that I have a king that's not so caught up in his title that he humbled himself down and he chose to sit at this table. And he chooses to allow me to sit at the table that he's now set for all of us that believe. We are blessed to have a king like that. Love you guys.